So I'm really excited to introduce our next panel, or our next speaker. This is another Fireside Chat, and I really love having these discussions. They break up the day a little bit differently. It's my pleasure to have Kimbal Musk, the co-founder of The Kitchen, and Diane Brady, a journalist with Bloomberg and the founder of DB Omnimedia. They will have a discussion on really the future of food waste prevention and the important role of students and youth in not just preventing food waste, but a whole range of other food initiatives. So please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Hey guys.
Thank you, Danny. I was saying nothing relaxes you like hearing 70,000 people are tuning in. So
right, it's awesome.
Nice
I love
intimate
it.
discussion. I'm Diane, this is Kimbal, and I think one of the things, since you've not spoken at this event before, is to just talk about some forks in the road, so to speak, and get a sense as to how you came here. I think it was Zip2, you sold it with your brother, $307 million. He goes off to, do whatever he did. You go to the French Culinary Institute. Let's start with that. Were you seeking to become a chef? Did you just want a break? What was your goal?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here and people on the internet that are watching. We actually tried to pull this together about 6 years ago, in 2011, and Carrie from the Walmart Foundation is here today, and we were only able to get 7 people to show up. And the fact that, we just kept pushing, and people like Danielle formed Food Tank, and now we have this extraordinary community that's listening and working hard on this problem. It's really, really exciting to be here. So thank you, guys.
Yep. So let's go. So what brings you here then? Let's start
Sure.
with that.
Yeah. So I had this extremely fortuitous experience to be part of the internet during its early days, and built a company. We sold it, and the truth of the matter is, food has always been my passion. So I've always cooked for the family. I've cooked for friends in university. Food for me is always this beautiful gift we give each other 3 times a day. And I really wanted to just learn more about it. I didn't think about changing careers as much. And the French Culinary Institute in Manhattan was a way for me to give myself a break from business, but also to learn about what I was passionate about. And it was profound. It was really amazing. I ended up learning a lot, of course. But then my graduation was just a couple weeks before 9/11. And the French Culinary Institute helped coordinate volunteers, and I was able to volunteer for the firefighters, and cooking for those firefighters every day was very traumatic to see it all happen and be part of that. But what a beautiful way to be part of the solution in food is this amazing way to build community. Watching these firefighters come out from these burning piles of metal, eat our food, and then go back out again, it was just extraordinary. So I decided to work on food after that as a career. I opened a restaurant in Colorado called The Kitchen.
Why not New York? Why did you go to Colorado?
Well, I just came through 9/11, so
right.
Probably just to get away.
Yeah.
I think. And I think I subconsciously wanted to go to a place that was, buried in the mountains, right by NORAD, so hopefully protected. I think it's Colorado is a beautiful state. At the time, there were a few local farmers that were kind of getting started, and we opened The Kitchen with this intention. Our mission was community through food, and we worked with local farmers and serve what they grew very simply, and it was a huge success. This is before farm to table, and much more of a success than we expected. We were expecting 40 covers a night in a town of only 100,000 people. Within 3 months, we were serving 3,000 people a week. It was just extraordinary.
So I know we're going through various iterations of your career, but since this forum is about food waste, one of the things is philosophically, when you were setting up the restaurant, and I know we can talk about how you scaled it,
Sure.
and it's now a chain, but give me some sense, in addition to farm to table, were you conscious of, food loss, food waste? Was that part of the motivation?
I'll give credit to Hugo Matheson, my co-founder. He forced us to compost from the beginning. We're very cautious about portion size to make sure we're not overfeeding. And of course, we treasure the product because it came from our local farmers, and you didn't get that much, so you needed to make sure use it really well. One of the programs we created was a whole cow program, so the way we think about food waste is, first and foremost, you got to try and feed the food to humans. Like, that's the most important thing. If there's waste after that, then you want to try and get it to animals.
Nobody wants to eat the tail.
Well, we actually get people. We have crispy pig's ears on the menu, and it's one of our top sellers. So we get creative. It's pretty amazing. But the second one is you got to figure out, okay, if you can't feed it to humans, how do you make sure it gets directly to animals versus it being used for other, certainly not landfill. And so we worked with farmers to come pick up the produce, the compost at the end of the day. When they do deliveries, they would just take it back to their farm and serve it to pigs and so forth. So I think it's against the law, but we kind of let it go. And the farmers, of course, were very grateful for it. So it was a free product for them that they could reuse. And then the final one, a company came up in Boulder that would convert compost to a soil fertilizer. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge epiphany for us because there was no concern that the food would be wasted. It would be used in some form. But really it's about whole cow program, use all of the animal for human consumption in our restaurants, for our guests in delicious, wonderful ways, everything from the prime cuts to the crispy pig's ears. Then it's about making sure that if we do compost, it gets ideally served directly to the animals. And then finally, if it can't go to the animals, it gets used for soil fertilizer.
It's interesting,
But we are zero waste, so we have no waste, no food waste in our restaurant.
How did people initially react to the portion size? Because I think that's one of the things we were joking earlier. Is I'm from Canada, and one of the ways you could always spot a U.S. player in the Blue Jays was they'd complain about the portion size. The minute they got north of the border was like, where's my bucket of fries? You know, and there's a sense that value is equated with, the volume of food on your plate. Was there some pushback, or even when you're talking about the learning gardens and the work you've done with kids, portion is so critical to me?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think we went through an expansion of the restaurants where we went from Boulder, which is about as hippie as it gets, and you can get away with things like smaller portion sizes.
Now you're in Brooklyn, so you're...
In Brooklyn as well. We haven't opened a restaurant there yet, but very much about managing portions so that you're really appreciating, better quality food and enjoying every bite, and rather than just consumption of calories, which is a horrible, horrible place where we are, unfortunately, today in the industrial food system. And so not only do we have food waste, we have obesity and diabetes rampant amongst the poor. I mean, you just couldn't design a worse system than we have. And so the portion size for us, when we left Boulder to go to Denver, we were like, oh, that's a cow town. This is back before, now it's really cool, but back then it was a cow town. They're going to want big portions. We learned actually they really appreciate real food, and they love it. And we didn't have to change our business much at all. Maybe a couple more steaks on the menu, maybe sell more burgers, but...
Let's talk about the evolution, because I want to get to Square Roots, and I also want to ask a little bit about what you've done with kids in the schools and learning gardens. Sure. I remember, different of course, but Jamie Oliver was talking about the school program he had, and he felt it didn't work because people equated good meals with sort of almost an elitism, that it was a middle class thing to do. That may be separate from what you were doing, but what was your experience there? Because it's in how many schools now? 300?
We're over 400 schools. Yeah, we're over 400
so
schools.
Very
we
successful.
should be almost 600 by this time next year. So.
What was the motivation behind that, and how did you?
Yeah, so we love supporting school gardens, and the problem with school gardens, while they work very well, they don't scale at all. So they're usually put on the corner of the schoolyard. The facilities department hates them, and so they put a fence around it. Then the teachers can't get in, and even if they're passionate, it's hard to use the garden properly, and then it starts to fall into disrepair, and then we get this reputation of school gardens being the problem that they have. And so I don't know if we have the picture up, but we should pull the picture up of the learning garden. So here's an example of what we do, which is
very
beautifully...
Open. Very open.
Very open. No fence is allowed at all. That is absolutely the requirement. And so that means actually working with the facilities departments and the districts and the superintendents to get approval that for the life of this garden there will never be a fence around it. It's
Kids
raised.
Don't just come and eat the lettuce.
They do, and we love that. That's the goal.
Okay. All right.
So we're trying to explain to these districts that the goal is for them to accidentally eat it, because that would be awesome. So we also raise the beds up, so you can see these are easy to teach in. It's ADA compliant, so everyone and anyone can enjoy them. They're placed right on the playground, not on the corner of the schoolyard, so the kids can enjoy them at recess. They're easy to teach in, so the teachers we teach the teachers how to teach science, but the teachers can just go, it's a beautiful day outside, let's go outside and read a book together as a class. And it's been extraordinarily successful. I believe we're the first group that scaled, and we're very proud of that. And mostly it's been through working in partnership with the districts and the facilities departments, which are very traditional bureaucrats, and you have to play by their rules to make it work. So we partnered with the Denver Public Schools to design this. Same materials as playground equipment, so it lasts forever. These will last longer than the bricks in the wall of the school. So it's truly a powerful investment in the school.
Has it actually, do you have any advice for the people, you've got kids in the New York City system. I mean, do you, this is a school lunches, and how much does that fresh food sort of come into the food system that's feeding kids at lunches? Any advice
we love
for that?
We love that. So that comes back to food waste. So if kids pick the food, they finish everything. Like, that's amazing. Like, if you try and get a kid to eat a salad bar, it's a little bit like pulling teeth. I'm sure we all have kids. If they grow that lettuce and you just sprinkle it a little bit in the salad bar, they will clean that salad bar out. And so it's about also introducing our community, including our kids, to real food is delicious, real food is nourishing, it's fun, and we help with the food waste in the school simply by supplementing the salad bars that are there.
So I want to move to the third chapter, Square Roots. Talk
Sure.
about that. What motivated this incubator and this approach to
that's great.
urban agriculture?
Well, I really believe urban farming is a huge part of our future. On the food waste side, if you can bring your product as close to your consumer as possible, you'll have less inventory, less issues with potential cold chain breaking. That means like no refrigeration happening at some point along the line. In fact, we have one of our Square Roots entrepreneurs here, and we can learn a lot from that. But one of the entrepreneurs delivers greens to people at their desk in New York and Brooklyn, and they'll literally say, we're going to harvest in the morning and deliver to your desk. And if the person doesn't want it, they just don't have to harvest.
So let's step back a second just to sort of tell people a little bit what the genesis of this program was, and how many entrepreneurs do you have in it?
Okay,
right now?
so the genesis was we wanted to create a generation of real food entrepreneurs, and urban farming is this awesome, exciting space. So we found a company in Boston called Freight Farms that builds these urban farms in storage containers, the same storage containers you'll see on the back of a ship. And each container produces about 2 acres of equivalent outdoor growing throughout the year. And I think it's going to get much, much more as the technology gets even better. And so it's really cool that it's a business in a box that we can now give to 18 to 24-year-olds, and we can say to them, grow what you think will sell, go talk to your customer base, what matches your personality. Some people work better, going desk to desk in Brooklyn. Some people prefer to sell directly to a restaurant and have a real partnership. Some people prefer to grow a specialty crop and sell it across specialty stores in New York. Really let them build their business. We partnered with the USDA, so they fund these folks to
and how
it's
did
a real
you
business.
pick them? Because when I was looking at the bios, you had former musician, former investment banker. It's a very eclectic mix of people.
Yeah, I mean, I think entrepreneurs come from everywhere,
Yeah.
and I think that's awesome. But to be honest, it was probably our biggest challenge in the whole business was we did a call for applications. We had 10 farms available in August of last year, and we had 500 applications. And
Wow.
it really tells you how much people want to be in food. It just blew us away. And so to process all 500 was actually one of the hardest things we had to do.
So what was the hallmark of the ones that got in? Is it similar to
Really,
what
it's
you
a
look for
mix.
in any entrepreneur? Or is it
I
quite
think we
different?
obviously wanted to look for entrepreneurial vigor and the sort of hunger to build something and be part of it from the beginning. So I think 10 years from now, Square Roots entrepreneurs will be a different flavor than the first year because it's just a different problem to solve. We're literally just inventing the business model as we speak. And I think it's been a great experience. But it's we just wanted to find people that were going to work hard and we felt like had the entrepreneurial gene.
It's all plants. So I know there's some people here doing bug farming, for example.
Sure,
Could
yeah.
you see crickets or such going into these containers? Or
I don't think so. Just because we want to focus on what we think what we will do well, and I think crickets will be a completely different customer base and a different approach. But it's all part of the same food revolution that's going on.
It's interesting because we're seeing this. I don't know, infiltration is the wrong term, but technology is very much becoming very much embedded in farming. Whether
That's
it's data
amazing.
analytics and
Very exciting time.
Yet I associate Silicon Valley certainly with. Soylent and
Sure. Food
including
as a
your
pill.
brother, by the way, who's
Exactly.
famously talked about subsisting on caffeine-free Diet Coke, and if you could take food in a pill, you're very different. So talk a little bit about what's happening in Silicon Valley. What do you think that we can learn, in this community from Silicon Valley and vice versa, since the two worlds are converging?
Well, I think that's an interesting way to talk about, this is a long battle to fight, and I love my brother very much, and he does say those words, at least he has in the past.
Have you influenced him at all?
I have influenced him, and he's starting to really appreciate, having dinner with his kids or having a good meal with his friends, and understand that life is actually about that, about connection, about learning from people and being curious. And food is such a powerful way to bring people together. And so he's definitely changed his tune over time. That being said, it's a lifelong battle probably for me. He'll never be where I am. But what's good about it is for you guys all fighting this fight. You guys are the generals and lieutenants in this fight for real food, and it's not always easy. And the key is to stick to your guns, to what you believe is right. And if I just look at the growth in the community compared to what it was just 5 years ago, I mean, we're on to something. So just keep up with the fight.
What have been some of the biggest challenges for you? Because people must assume, with the last name of Musk and the accomplishments you've had, that it would be easy. So, whether you're talking about learning gardens, talking about squares, what have been some of the difficulties, unanticipated difficulties you've faced as you've tried to scale out the different ventures you've done in food?
Yeah, I mean, every venture I've ever had has been extremely hard.
Yeah.
So I think that obviously it's good to have a track record and a well-known last name, but it's I always seem to adjust the problem to my hardest part. I don't make it easy for myself.
So what's the problem now that you're facing?
Well, I think we're now in the case of the learning gardens. We built our first one in 2011, and we weren't sure how well this would scale. And by 2012, we built 50. And just to give you an idea, like the best nonprofits build 2 a year. I mean, it's really, really hard to go that fast. And now we're at almost over 400. It was extremely, extremely hard to do that. But now that we are scaling and it seems to be working, we're not resting on our laurels. Now we're starting to push government to participate in the cost and I am the least experienced when it comes to government, and my least joyful part of my day is government. But they're the right people that need to fund this. And so now the next step is figuring out how to get the government involved. And it's hard. It's really, really hard, and it takes a lot of time. And you get a lot of no's, you get a lot of events where you show up and no one's there, and you just do your best.
So if I could make you dictator for a day, just for a day, then give it back. But if you could change anything, since you're dealing with policy, you're, obviously resources is an issue, what would you change? What would you, if you could wave a wand and just make it happen, what do you think is going to move the needle for you on the issues that are important? Yeah,
so if I was a dictator and I was in charge of things that I could truly move the needle immediately, I would change the dietary guidelines, and I would change food procurement rules for federal government and schools and hospitals.
Dietary guidelines, let's start with that. What would you change?
So I would encourage less carbohydrates. Not to say I have no issue with carbohydrates, but less carbohydrates, less dairy. It's more about real food, so more nutrient-dense food like vegetables, fruits and vegetables primarily, less and better quality meat versus quantity. And so for me, the place where government really has an extremely direct and powerful role is procurement. And if we continue to do what we've been doing for 50 years, and our schools are essentially obesity machines, you come in not obese, you leave obese, it's just really bad. So we have to fix that. And that to me is the first place I'd start.
It's interesting. I always think of celebrities. I always see them with a Starbucks cup in their hand. I think, just for once, could I see an apple? Something like Kim Kardashian with an apple. What would that do for us? But
probably not much.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So there are a lot of people in this audience working in different sort of parts of the industry. There's a lot of emphasis now on partnerships and understanding that we really need to partner to do things together. Talk a little bit about how people can both work with you and how you're partnering with others to make change, because this isn't a solo effort.
Yeah, no, I learned the hard way that partnering is really important. So when I started out, I was, as an entrepreneur, at least you don't want to add too many variables, and partnerships add variables. And we really struggled a lot when we would try to partner, because you're figuring out your business model, and then you need to change it, and then your partner's unhappy, or they're trying to do the same thing. So nowadays, we're bigger, especially on the learning garden side. Partnering has become critical, especially with the school districts or with the superintendents, with foundations, with cities, with mayors. We still focus on what we do well. We don't want to be distracted from our core competency, which I think partnerships have a tendency to do. But we hold our line, and we have credibility, so people do let us stick to our guns. And it's been a very powerful way to grow the business. It's now we're in a more mature stage where we actually need partners to become ubiquitous and get it across the country.
So I realize our time is winding down, if I'm correct. I think we have 25 minutes. So I want to get some sense of the takeaways of what you want this audience to be thinking about, especially with regards to your own ambitions, but also you talked about 5 years ago you couldn't get 7 people to show up. What's it going to look like 5 years from now?
I think it's really exciting. Real food is coming up in every city and neighborhood across America. We were just in Memphis, which is a city that you would think would be far from real food. And it's a community that's really passionate. The restaurateurs are really passionate about real food. They're working with their local farmers, or they're working with suppliers that can bring fresh, nourishing food to their restaurants. They're building food hubs so that local farmers can find their customer more easily. They're renovating parts of their city, all focused around food. There's a farm in the middle of Memphis that we're partnering with some groups there to convert it to organic. It was literally, this is how bad it was a prison farm. So prisoners would farm chemical cotton in the middle of Memphis. You just couldn't imagine it being any worse. And and so they just decided there were rules in place that you can't do prison farmers anymore. And so this land it was an opportunity 2 years ago to convert it. And they asked us to do a restaurant in Memphis, and we said, well, we would do it, but we won't. And on this farm, there's no way we're going to do it on a chemical cotton farm. And so we're now converting that to an organic farm. We're now second year, we're 2 years into the transition, and next year we'll be able to plant crops. And in the middle of Memphis, we'll have an organic demonstration farm that's going to be one of the most coolest farms in the country, all around food, and ways that you'd never think this was going to be the case just a few years ago.
So it's interesting, and I'll end on this, but when I think of farming, I used to live on a dairy farm as a kid. You know, the rural farmer, the role of the rural farmer in these discussions around sort of urban. Is there anything about that you'd like to say about that? Because there's a pre-existing community here. Do you do a lot of work with them as you're looking at some of these innovations in the cities? Yeah,
I mean, the hard truth of the existing community is they're very old. So most of our farms are owned by people 75 to 90 years old. The kids don't want them. They're farming corn for ethanol and corn syrup. It's total wasted land and terrible technology. Everything's bad about it. But of course their kids don't want to be involved. That sounds terrible. You know, that's the last thing you'd want to share with your friends at a cocktail party. And so I think it's and in today's world, you know, the millennials especially are people call them the entitled generation. I call them the impassioned generation. If you don't give them something they're passionate about, they just can't get engaged. And I think that's a really good thing. Mm-hmm. So what we have to do with our farmers, and we're doing our part with Square Roots, where we need to give our younger generation something exciting to be part of. Real food is super exciting. Mm-hmm. They want to be part of it. You know, being a local farmer in Brooklyn is super cool. And you know, they may not do it forever, but they'll do it for a while. And maybe some of them will end up becoming career farmers and doing their farm in upstate New York, or maybe doing a big indoor farm in the city. Whatever it is, we just need to get more young farmers excited, and it's certainly not going to be using the industrial food system. That is painfully boring and uninteresting, and frankly, a disaster for our society.
So on a personal note, to end off, give a signature dish, or tell us something a little bit about sort of your own cooking style.
Yeah, that's great. I'm a very simple cook. I love to roast chicken. Just a good home roast chicken is one of my favorite things. And then I'll do it with roasted vegetables. And it's one of the easiest things to do. It takes no time. It's fresh. It's delicious. My kids love it. My wife loves it. Everyone is happy. So I think simple is the way to go with cooking at home.
Well, next year dinner at Kimbal's house. So
yeah,
thank you very
great.
much, and thank you very much, everybody, for a great conversation. You're not sure. There's a question at the back. Hi. Yes, you.
Hi, Tom O'Donnell with our protection agency at Green University. So, Kimbal, any thoughts about I know you're working with kids with your learning guards, but how about thought moving that up into higher education campuses?
You mean university campuses?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is cool. I think that we decided to tackle that problem with Square Roots. So Square Roots is 18 to 24. Kids can apply. They get a loan from the USDA. It's for-profit business, and they can do it while they're in college. We find that to be a very exciting program for university-level kids. What happens with kids when they're 5 years old, which is why we work with them there, is there's still so much magic and wonder with them when you put them in a garden. They get super excited, they're more attentive the rest of the day, and you can teach them science in ways that they really remember. So it's a really powerful learning experience. But as you get older, science is just not that interesting, gardening is not that interesting. But to a small subset of people, it's really exciting. And so that's why we decided to do Square Roots for university-level folks.
Yeah, back there, a woman. Oh, thanks. Oh, there's a mic here.
Hi, Barbara Greenberg from the Philanthropic Group. The learning gardens are fascinating. Have you found a systemic way to deal with the summer, July, August, when the children are gone and it's prime growing season?
Good question.
Yeah, so that's a great question. What people don't appreciate is when you work in low-income neighborhoods, the children are not gone. Everyone stays there. And parents need things to do during the week. So we have had extraordinary success during the summer. We do a lot of plantings that optimize for harvest at the end of May before school goes out. Some schools really end at the end of June and they start up again early August. So it's it's virtual daycare for these kids as well. So we actually have not had any problem at all with summers. It's actually a way for parents to get very engaged. And honestly, it's been a huge success for us.
Okay, now you've got a question.
Hi, my name is Dallas McCann. And I'm a lead farmer at New York. We're starting up a farm that is 3/4 of an acre, and we're bordered 150 feet away from a high school, and right across the street is a library. I was wondering if you could expand on scale. You mentioned scale earlier, and I saw those raised beds. Is there a minimum, maximum that you've experimented with, and have they been?
Well, you mean for our learning gardens or for your farm? Just let me clarify the question. So you have a farm next to a high school, 3/4 of an acre.
Yes.
And you'd like to grow? Is that what you mean?
We're starting to grow this coming year, but I'm wondering if you've experimented with scale. Have you found the sweet spot for how much production space to have for the school, and what's worked?
We haven't worked with schools. I would imagine that you would have no problem with quantity. We just have to get the price to match what the school can pay. But I think that the challenge with scale in farming is oftentimes not the demand. The demand is usually you're probably sold out. It's that you need the block right next to you, and you don't always get that. Then you get the block 3 or 4 blocks away, and that's actually really hard to manage. So scale in farms is tough that way. So you just want contiguous acreage, and that's tough in a city. So that's why I think urban farming makes more sense in a city like New York, vertical farming. But when you're out in the country, especially in this area, you really can be a fairly big farm, and as long as it matches your lifestyle, scale is not the problem.
What's the level of waste in your, I mean, again, it's early days yet, but there's a lot of discussion always about waste when you talk about the industrial food system.
Yeah.
What's it like with urban farming?
It is fantastic. You literally harvest it and walk it over to your customer. I mean, it is incredibly efficient. We're only just getting started, but we literally have a timestamp of when the food was harvested, and when you get it, you eat it. It's as fresh as you could imagine. The only thing fresh would be if you grew it on in your own home, and there's zero food waste. It's really a fantastic program.
We haven't talked much, and I know I shouldn't be talking since we'd finished up, but I'm curious about the role of technology, since there's so much now with machine learning and AI and how you can automate a lot of these processes. Is that something that you're looking at, or a lot of the entrepreneurs are looking at, to sort of create almost a self-sustaining farming, since there's so much technology that's infiltrating every other industry?
Yeah, so my view on AI and automation is that you'll never be able to replace the human element. So creating something that tastes good, I mean, it's possible, but I really doubt AI is going to solve that for us. Mm-hmm. That being said, AI can really help you be more efficient and manage your farm and have a better lifestyle. You can share information between farms. So especially our Square Roots containers, we'll have hundreds of them within a few years, and it's going to be super cool for each farmer to share their data, and then that'll be able to improve each farmer's productivity and yield and business model and so forth. And whether you call that AI automation or just old-fashioned, learn as you go, I think technology is going to be amazing. What's happened in food is it's like the one of the final frontiers that technology really hasn't tackled yet. And done correctly, we'll have real food for everyone at affordable prices. We'll have thriving farmers. We'll have a planet that is benefiting from the food we grow versus suffering from the food we grow. So I think that technology is just getting started in the food world, and it's as a foodie turned technologist turned foodie, to watch the two come together. I mean, it's a dream come true. It's really, really cool.
Go ahead.
On that note,
Do you want to just introduce yours?
Yeah, I'm Karina Napier. I'm from Maine. I'm involved in farming there. And I've seen little bits of what Netherlands is doing for how they've begun doing
Netherlands or Netherlands?
The Netherlands.
The Netherlands, yeah,
Yes.
I don't know. They're the Silicon Valley of
Yeah.
this stuff, yeah.
So just with your experience and your resources and connections, have you seen any of that start to happen here in the U.S., or do you see it happening in the near future?
It is going to happen soon. I got to tell you an experience I had at the Netherlands. So the Netherlands has been growing indoor for 100 years or even more, I'm sure. And they are the second largest exporter of produce behind the United States. And they are a postage stamp. That's how powerful indoor farming is. And I was there, and they traditionally do crappy industrial food that they sell. The tomato looks good, doesn't taste like much. And I was with Phillips, and they took me through their most advanced indoor farm, and it had strawberries lined up. There are different containers, one with a particular atmosphere and light, one with a different atmosphere and light. And we went to the tasting room out to it, and they were able to show me a row of strawberries, each in its individual basket. And they would be able to say, okay, this cost 25 cents a strawberry, and it tastes like sour water. And then you go all the way to the other end, this costs $20 a strawberry, and this tastes like the most beautiful summer strawberry you've ever picked in your life. Somewhere in the middle, this one has more vitamin D in it. This one has more vitamin C in it. This one is designed for jams. This one is designed for desserts. And as a chef, you're just, this is incredible. And so the future of food, the ability to take light recipes and as a chef to adjust, say, I feel like I want to make a strawberry tart this week. I need a sour sweet and sour cherry, a strawberry, and be able to get that within a relatively within time the season that you want. And there's no seasons in indoor farming, but you can say, I want strawberries in January in New York City that taste like the best summer strawberries you can get in August. So it's really cool, and that's what you see in the Netherlands.
Yeah. It's interesting. So I will, in fact, end off, because I think one of the things that's always intrigued me about this event is that there is a lot of involvement of what you might call big food in some capacity, big food that gets it, that wants to source. How optimistic are you, and it doesn't sound like you were initially, about the degree to which big food companies, for example, can be a partner in the solution here? We didn't really touch on obesity and things like,
big food companies are absolutely part of the solution, and they are waking up to it. They understand that.
Are you doing much with any of them, or are you doing much with any of them?
We work with the Walmart Foundation is a support of Learning Gardens. There's another group called Gordon Food Services. We're one of the largest food distributors. There's Shamrock in the western side of the U.S. So we're absolutely working with them. It is a tough problem to figure out. How do you make it affordable, make it something that, we don't have a lot of food waste, because if you start putting fresh food into a Walmart and there's food waste, that's bad in many, many levels, including Walmart's business. So you really have to be careful and thoughtful how you do it. But these are the folks that have the distribution, they have the customers. This is where we should be working.
Great. Well, we've given some extra time, so I hope, now time is up. So thank you once again, Kimbal 2.0, and we look forward to 3.0 and all the other things you're doing.
I'll stick with 2.0. I'm going to just keep going with that.
So thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you.
Thanks.